The Goat Life is a movie that was released on Netflix a while ago. It lasts for 3 hours. The movie tells the true story of an Indian named Najib. In the early 90s, he sold all his possessions and traveled to Saudi Arabia to work in his dream job. Events became intertwined after he fell under the mercy of a Saudi man who claimed to be his sponsor, then took him to the desert and under. In the burning sun, he was entrusted with the task of herding sheep and goats in inhuman and harsh conditions, to live a life resembling hell for 3 years. To be honest, I did not recognize the movie from Netflix, but through Twitter. The movie The Life of a Goat became a trend overnight, and the reason it was accused of insulting the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. If you read most of the tweets and comments, you'll really feel that this movie insults Saudi Arabia, even though you have not seen it, but since I am a human being, he is far from sentimental, especially in these topics. I decided I want to watch the entire movie and focus on every shot in order to come up with this video. I will show you the story briefly, and at the end of this clip I will give you my personal opinion about it, but be careful, there may be some spoilers, so put a like, subscribe, and join the Ark of Wisdom family. We are close to reaching 10,000 friends. Don't be afraid to like. Don't bite, let's get started. The Goat Life is an Indian film adapted from a true novel that was released in 2008 with the same name. The film follows the life story of Najib, an illiterate and poor man from the state of Kerala in India. Like the majority of Indians, Bangladeshis, and even Arabs, he dreams of escaping the poverty he lives in India. By finding a job in the Gulf to earn enough money to support his family in his homeland, and with his rosy dreams of earning a living and improving his life and the lives of his wife and child, Najib borrows money to secure his visa and travel tickets. When he arrived at the airport, he asked for what he supposed was his sponsor, so he took him in the car to what was supposed to be. It is a hotel or a house where he will sleep his first night before starting his new job, or at least that is what he thought. However, events changed dramatically and Najib Fox's hopes were dashed. He was actually going to a hotel, but a special kind of hotel. The Saudi man drove the car towards a barren desert to find Najib himself imprisoned. Forced to work as a goat herder in the vast, desolate deserts of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Najib was deprived of his identity, especially his passport, and his freedom was also taken away from him. He found himself trapped in the vast desert, a desert that did not know its beginning from its end, blazing heat during the day and freezing cold at night, without a phone. With any means of communication, Najib feels as if he is in an isolated spot on another planet, a spot far from civilization and even from humanity. His alleged sponsor charges him with grazing goats. I wish he had stopped here. Rather, he was forcing him to do cruel and inhuman work and treating him like a slave literally owned by him. Because of his deprivation of his basic human rights, Najib endures, and he also endured physical abuse, hunger, and thirst. In this depressing state, his companion was none other than the goats he was tending to the point that his voice, as the days, weeks, and months passed, became close to the voice of a goat. Thoughts of escaping repeatedly occurred to him, but he was severely beaten every time he tried. In it, driven by memories of his family and the hope of one day escaping his earthly hell, Najib clings to life. His flexibility and intelligence help him survive under the harsh conditions in the desert. He learns to adapt to his surroundings by using whatever limited resources he has to support himself. The goats that were once a symbol of my slavery have become an artery. His life is where he learns to understand her behavior and care for her. Najib's survival in the desert is not only a physical battle, but also a mental and emotional battle. He fights deadly loneliness, despair, and the constant fear of death. His thoughts often turn to the wife he left behind in Kerala and the child he has never seen. These thoughts give him strength to endure the hardships and maintain the glimmer of hope that he will be reunited with his family one day after years of suffering that any human being can imagine himself experiencing. Najib finally sees a glimmer of hope when he meets an Indian colleague who is besieged and lives in almost the same harsh circumstances as him. The two men share stories of despair and form a bond of friendship built. Regarding his tragedy and ordeal here, they devise a plan to escape from that desert and that hell and return home, but the result of this escape may be the opposite, which is inevitable death and his disappearance in the desert without history mentioning them. As for the rest of the events, I will leave them for you to learn about in the movie. Now for my personal opinion, but I will be frank with you while I watch. For the film, I was discovering the story, and I was also trying to find errors in the film that would prove the allegations that I saw on Twitter, such as that the film insults the people and the Saudi state. But after I finished the entire film, I came up with a clearer idea and a different idea, and perhaps most of the people who posted those tweets on Twitter had not watched it. Or they saw summaries of other people, or they only saw some clips. The subject of the film primarily focuses on what is called in the Gulf countries the sponsorship system. The sponsorship system and the amount of injustice that comes behind it, and this matter is not denied by anyone. Some Saudi citizens take the sponsorship system on the basis that it is an ownership contract for a slave and they treat it. The person they sponsor is as if he were a slave or an animal. We have seen countless videos, stories and articles about the tragic and inhumane stories that migrants and workers receive in some Gulf countries. The reason is that that person, who is the sponsor, feels inside himself that this worker is mine. He thinks in this way and deals with that person in this way. Basically, imagine being in a country where you are forbidden to work, and even forbidden from leaving the country to your original homeland. I mean, frankly, just thinking about this matter gives me goosebumps, shivers, and dread. However, a person cannot own his home, or there are many problems between him and the sponsor deals with him as if he were a master who owns a slave owned by him, a slave he bought with his own hand, and he is treated in various ways. Injustice, and oppression, and he has no choice but to remain silent because the system does not benefit him or support him.